Hi, Mike L here. You know what puts me into berserker mode? When people who are not qualified to judge movies become members of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. These people were recently hard at work giving nominations that weren't deserved and snubbing other categories that were deserved. Take The Dark Knight for example. This film made over $995 million worldwide, based mostly on the strength of its script. Besides the hype over seeing Heath Ledger's final performance, the real reason people saw this film over and over again was because of the great story. So, when a film is this popular, the Academy has no choice but to honor it. So, how do they honor it? They nominate the film for Best Art Direction, Best Cinematography, Best Editing, Best Makeup, Best Sound Editing, Best Sound Mixing, Best Visual Effects, and of course, a Best Supporting Actor nod for the deceased Heath Ledger. It gives Dark Knight a nomination in every category except the ones that really matter: script, directing, and picture. Not to mention the snub they gave to the other excellent acting performances by Morgan Freeman, Maggie Gyllenhaal, and Gary Oldman, in my opinion, the world's greatest actor. Another funny thing is, Dark Knight didn't really have good art direction or good cinematography, and it certainly didn't have good editing. But what it did have is a good script. In fact, it had a great script. But the Academy is not in the business of recognizing excellence in film. It's in the business of horsing around. And that's why it puts me into berserker mode. Okay, so we're sitting with myself, Mike L, George, Rizok, and Salgood Sam.
Or Max Douglas.
AKA
depending.
Max Douglas.
Yes. Right.
So, this is the segment we like to call What the Blazes is Wrong with the Industry.
Okay.
The comic book industry. You've got an opinion on this. So what are you saying? There's something wrong with the industry. What's wrong?
You were asking, I wasn't saying. But seeing as you asked, keep it short, 1950s, they got put in a box. And they become kind of nostalgic about the box. And you look at, I was just in Gatineau at a BD Fest, International BD Fest, and hanging out with a bunch of international artists. Okay. And the not just the variety of what you can get, which people always talk about, how many different genres and but just the attitude about the books, and an attitude about the publishing industry, and an attitude about the creators, and the attitude about their rights, and their ability to own stuff, and the attitude towards the product. What I'm specifically talking about really does come from comic-specific history in America, with the seduction of the innocents and the kind of parallel to the whole
the comic code authority.
Well, that was created
self-censorship.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the culture that created, and the idea that created a whole period of comics that is what's most kind of glorified and made held up as being nostalgic, is this comics in a bubble. It's not allowed to be anything other than what's in this bubble. And the whole idea that comics are only used for kids.
We're also,
all of that stuff that we've been dealing with, trying to get a little over.
So we need to get over it.
But not just, what we've been doing a lot now has been trying to get the market over, get the readers over. Did you want to say something?
Well, get the readers, no, get the readers over, but we're talking about just here though, but just here in North America.
Yeah.
But for some strange reason, although it's really kind of started, or at least this form of illustrated stories started here.
Arguably they go back to Europe. Actually.
Well, yeah, but
arguably they go back to ancient Egypt, but
you can further cave paintings if you like.
Yeah, but it's probably the first art form.
I actually think of it in terms of the notion that it's a hybridized form. I don't go for that. I think it's actually more like where we started, and we've split the various ways we make symbols and put stories on record. Mm-hmm. And we've got the text over here, the pictures over there. Comics, at the best, makes those work together. Someone
found that amusing back there, apparently. No, but anyway.
No, because the way that we treated them, anyways, through seduction of the innocent, when we treated it through that, it's changed into something else, and we didn't take it seriously.
Well, there's also only really 2 or 3 big companies. I mean, there's Marvel, DC, Image, and then the other ones.
And those, unfortunately, I mean, DC has expanded a little bit with Vertigo books and stuff, but on the whole, they have, and this is kind of getting back to what I think the problem is with comes out of Seduction of the Innocent, is this sort of self-imposed narrow view of what they could do. Mm-hmm. I was coming here for the book festival. I was talking to an author, a literary author, who was just saying, like, well, comics, what do you do? Like the coming of age stories, right? What else do they do?
And hey, listen, they've been showing kids how to.
They couldn't do more.
Well, they've been showing kids how to avoid landmines in third world countries with little tiny comic strip pieces of little flyers.
And that's very practical.
That's very practical, but that is, I mean, not to say that that's where comics should go, but education. and doing other things like that. Like, it doesn't have to just be entertainment.
But and even just within the context of telling fiction, the point he inadvertently made is really good. We've been going through a recent growth in graphic novels that took a while to get going because you actually had to have some material out there in order to they'd buy one book. Back when Miles won the Pulitzer, people got excited. They went to buy Miles. Wow, amazing. They go look for another one. There wasn't something else to buy. It took a bit of time for there to be enough material on the racks for there to actually have the boom we're having. But what we're still seeing is trend following. Someone does a bio book or a historical book, there are 5 more. It's probably being done to some degree, but there is a lot of material, a lot of room in genres and kinds of books that you see in literary fiction and you see in film that we're still not trying with comics, and they are tried in other countries and other languages. We're being very timid. We still have this self-imposed idea of what comics can be amongst ourselves. We're spending all this time telling other people comics aren't for kids. Well, we should probably start acting that way.
I'm making my difference by doing my version of 300. So it's kind of autobiographical, kind of historical, but it's about how I discovered what was below.
So the adult market.
It's 4 pages. Riveting.
Yeah. All right, I wish we could talk longer, and I definitely would like to have you back again, but unfortunately, we're out of time.
Okay.
So, if you have any more notes to discuss about what's wrong with the industry, just email them, and we'll post them on our website. How's that?
Actually, we will.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, we'd like to thank Salgood Sam for coming out. I'd like to thank Jennifer Hillis.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank all of you for coming to the show, and I'd like to invite you, who's not here, to come out to our next taping. And Big Will, I'd like to thank you for having us tonight at the Comics Jam, which is going to be cut in earlier anyway. Thank you very much for coming out, and we'll see you next time, everybody.